Ed Miliband has said Labour will change the way the country is run and who it is run for as he launched the party's election manifesto. Saying he had been tested as opposition leader and was ready for power, Mr Miliband said Labour would be a party of change and responsibility. He ruled out a shopping list of proposals, guaranteeing all policies would require no extra borrowing. But PM David Cameron accused Mr Miliband of trying to con the public. The 86-page manifesto, which is 20,421 words long, sets out Labour's main policy pledges, including raising the minimum wage to more than £8 by the end of 2019, a one-year freeze in rail fares, costing £200 million, paid for by delaying upgrades to the A27 and A358 trunk roads, 25 hours of childcare for working parents of 3 and 4-year-olds and a new right to pre- and after-school help, paid for by rise in bank levy. Freezing gas and electricity bills until 2017, so they can only fall not rise. A £2.5 billion fund for the NHS paid for largely by a mansion tax on properties valued at over £2 million. Scrapping winter fuel payments for the richest pensioners, capping child benefit rises and protecting tax credits. A 50p tax rate on incomes over £150,000 a year and abolishing non-DOM status. Rises in VAT and national insurance ruled out. A cut in university tuition fees from £9,000 to £6,000. Speaking in Manchester, Mr Miliband said the first page of Labour's manifesto sets out a vow to protect our nation's finances, a clear commitment that every policy is paid for without a single penny of extra borrowing. Labour would not promise anything it could not fund, he said, contrasting this with the Conservatives, which he described as the party of sums that do not add up and commitments that cannot be kept. He added, "The plan we lay before you is no less ambitious because we live in a time of scarcity. It is more ambitious because it starts from a clear commitment to balance the books and more ambitious because it does not stop there. It meets the scale of the challenges we face today with not one policy funded by extra borrowing." Tested. Mr Miliband said Labour would put the interests of working people ahead of vested commercial interests, promising to raise the minimum wage to more than £8 by 2020 and requiring the wealthiest in society to pay more in tax. He said he would not seek to carry on from where the last Labour government left off but would seek to solve the challenges of our time. Addressing criticism of his leadership and suitability to be Prime Minister, which the Conservatives have made an election issue, he said, "Over the last 4.5 years, I have been tested. It is right that I have been tested for the privilege of leading this country. I am ready. Ready to put an end to the tired old idea that as long as we look after the rich and powerful we will all be okay. Ready to put into practice the truth that it is only when working people succeed, that Britain succeeds." But Mr Cameron told BBC Radio Newcastle, "When people hear Ed Miliband today they will think this is not a conversion to responsibility. It is not a conversion, it is a con." In other election news on Monday, the Liberal Democrats launch a 5-point plan, aimed at consumers and commuters, with proposals such as to end above-inflation rail fare rises and force energy firms to allow customers to change supplier within 24 hours. 100 small business owners, some of which used to support Labour, have written a letter to The Sun saying they intend to vote Tory. The Green Party calls for a review of horse and greyhound racing as it launches a national poster campaign. Ed Miliband and Nigel Farage will be at opposite ends of the platform during the BBC's election debate on Thursday. A new ICM poll gives the Conservatives a 6-point lead over Labour while YouGov's latest poll puts Labour 3 points ahead. With political parties under increasing pressure to explain how they will fund their pledges, the Institute for Fiscal Studies complained on Sunday that they were making lots of promises without producing much detail on how to deliver them. Carl Emerson, the IF's deputy director, said Labour had not indicated whether cuts would be made to police, defence or local government budgets to balance the books. Labour has said it would do what it takes to support the NHS but would not make any funding promises which could not be met. It is guaranteeing that every policy is paid for without additional borrowing through a budget responsibility lock, which would also require all the major parties to have their tax and spending plans audited by the Independent Office for Budget Responsibility before a general election. Both the Conservatives and Liberal Democrats have pledged to eliminate the £90 billion annual deficit by 2017/18. However, while Labour promises to cut borrowing during every year of the coming Parliament, the party offers no deadline, saying it would commit to achieving a budget surplus on current spending as soon as possible between 2015 and 2020. Labour's rivals said its track record was one of economic mismanagement, with Lib Dem leader Nick Clegg likening Labour's borrowing pledge to an alcoholic, who drinks a bottle of vodka every day, claiming they have no plans for additional vodka. UKIP leader Nigel Farage said there was no detail about how the deficit would be cut, while the SNP's Nicola Sturgeon said Scotland would see further budget cuts under Labour. Employers group the CBI welcomed Labour's focus on fiscal responsibility but said its proposed interventions in markets such as energy were worrying. The Conservatives and Greens are due to launch their manifestos on Tuesday, followed later this week by the Lib Dems and UKIP. Several manifesto pledges made in 2010, including a Conservative plan to raise the inheritance tax threshold and a Lib Dem commitment for a £2 million mansion tax, did not make it into the coalition programme the two parties agreed on after the two parties went into government together.